this is here. Oof, that's bright. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, that's neat. Today is Sunday, December the 19th, 2021. And this will be the last seminar of the year. I think I remark often at the start of these seminars that I just can't believe where the time has gone, and I really can't believe that 2021 is coming to a close already. It seems as if, well, it genuinely seems as though the year just started, maybe like 2 months ago. I feel like I can strongly remember January or February, and it feels a little bit like I'm in a time loop because, well, 2 years ago, it was Christmas time, and the media and the government had started to rumble about the coronavirus. Just rumblings. Nobody knew what was going on, right? I believe, if memory serves me, I first heard about the coronavirus at the very end of November of 2019. And so there were talks and chatter and whatever. And, it was starting the chatter towards Christmas time was starting to get to the point that, hey, this thing could be a pandemic, blah, 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 whatever, Chinese bat people. And of course, the news media wasn't saying this yet because they're always behind. But if you were following closely enough, that was what was going on. And then Christmas ended, we did the holidays, and it was January. And we had 2 weeks to flatten the curve. If you'll remember, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I remember this strongly. And, well, the rest is history. But the part that's weird is that now I'm in December 2021 going into 2022, so 2 years later. And if I'm not mistaken, are we not back to a conversation about flattening the curve? Granted, it's now the Omicron variant instead of the 19 variant. Sure, whatever. And granted, nobody who's talking about flattening the curve is putting a time limit on it anymore. So they won't say 2 weeks or 6 weeks or 5 weeks. They just say, let's flatten the curve and lock you people in your homes. But it is incredibly fascinating to me how in 2 years nothing has changed except for the virus. That changed several times, in fact. Nothing else has changed. So it's weird. It's weird because it feels a little bit like it's Groundhog Day. And then I've been trapped in the same day for the last year or so. And it's just bizarre that it's over. Anyways, the reason this is the last seminar of the year is, well, yesterday, for example, I was out at the Christmas party. There's drinks and there's whatever, food and everything. And it just takes up a lot of time, right? So I figure for most people, obviously not everybody, most people celebrate Christmas in one form or another. I guess not everybody observes the holiday in a religious sense, but for most of us, it's a very busy time of year, right? Friends, family, you got gifts to buy, you got food to prepare, and shopping, all this different stuff. So I figure this is one thing that doesn't need to be on anybody's list. It's not a big deal, if we all take a week or two off and focus on our friends and our families. And so I thought, you know what, let me end the seminar a little bit earlier in the year, right? And then give people that time, especially with the timing of the holidays. I think the next seminar would be on Boxing Day, and the seminar after that would be on New Year's Day. I think that's how it works out. So, just can't compete with either of those days. So we're not going to try. I think because it's the end of the year, I want to talk about the end of the year a little bit. And I should have grabbed my notebook and I didn't. So I might have to get up and go do that in a little bit. Real estate investing is comprised of a lot of different things, right? I think the two most important things are probably the analytical, right? The process of actually finding, understanding, a deal, right? Seeing where the numbers are supposed to be, what's supposed to happen, getting a good model for what you're buying into, what your investment or your project is going to look like. Um, um, One of the other very important factors, of course, is your mindset, your mentality, having the confidence to move forward once you have done a good, thorough analysis to actually take action and move forward. It's probably a third. It's called a pillar, which would be the actual follow through. Buying a property is all fine and good, but you gotta, you know, either renovate it or flip it or get it tenanted, whatever it is, right? And that's requires work. It's probably not as important as the other two, but only because it's more of a follow through, right? That is, you've already swung and you bought the place, and now you have to follow through and make sure it gets tenants or renovated or what have you. And that's probably easier because there's, whatever, hundreds of thousands of dollars hanging over your head at that point, kind of ensuring that you do that. But follow through, very important as well. So there's all these things, the mindset, the follow through, the analysis, all these kinds of things that come together to make a real estate deal happen. I think one of the most important things that is less, I guess, talked about, it's not the sexy thing that you're going to hear about on HGTV, right? Would be yourself, your time management, right? Mindset I already mentioned, but like, how do you make sure your mindset is in the right place to take on the deals and the opportunities as they present themselves to you, right? And so I think that it's very important, not mandatory, but very important to organize our lives, our personal lives. Oh, sorry, no, not personal lives, not like your best. Everybody's different, right? And I'm certainly not here to tell you what's the best way to keep your life organized. If I'm being honest, it's a point of difficulty for me at all times. I'm a relatively organized person, but I'm not a super organized person, and so it is something that I kind of always struggle with, is maintaining the organization. Which again, I don't want you to think everything needs to be like planned out to the day or anything. I'm just saying it's good to have a plan. It's good to have some goals. It's good to sit down. So I like to, at the end of the year, sit down and look back on the year. I had goals for 2021 that I wrote down in 2020. And I will have goals for 2022 that I will write down this year. And I will look back on them now that we're at the end of this year. I'm going to look back on the goals for 2021 and see how I did, right? Because goals are worthless if you're just writing them down. They're not something that you aim at. I mean, there's something you aim at, but then you have to check in on how you're doing with your goal, right? And a real goal is not saying, oh, I want to have $500,000 in the bank. Let's say that's my goal. That's not the goal. It's a dream. It's an objective for sure, but it's not a goal. Goals are actionable. Goals, essentially, when I say goal, and yes, I am distorting the definition a little bit, but when I say goal, I am talking about something that has direct, actionable steps to take you towards where you're aiming. Right? A dream is I want to have $500,000 at the end of the year. A goal is, in March, I am going to sell my car so that in April I can buy a hot dog stand, so that in June I can go stand outside the ACC and sell 500 hot dogs per Raptors game, so that by August I will have generated $350,000 worth of revenue. You see what I mean? Et cetera, et cetera. All the steps that you need to take, right? And then when you have the steps planned out, well, you can check in with yourself, right? Because now I can go back in March and I can say, well, is my car listed for sale yet? And then I can go into April and say, well, have I bought my hot dog cart yet, right? And I now know that by June, I need to have registered my license with the city to have the hot dog cart. I don't even know how all that works, but to get my hot dog cart next to the ACC, and on and on and on, to know if I'm actually achieving my goal, right? That's what a goal is. Goals are actionable. Anything else is a dream. right? Dreams are fine, but they're not actionable. I'd encourage everybody, now you've got 2 weeks or so left of the year, spend a little bit of time, sit down. What are your dreams first, right? Like, what are you hoping can happen this next year? And then how can you turn that into an actionable plan with steps to get there? Do you need to build relationships with people? Maybe you need to meet a realtor. Maybe you need to meet mortgage brokers. Maybe you need to build relationships with accountants, right? Maybe you need to build relationships with contractors, right? These might all be things that are goals for you, right? Because they might be the impediments to the next steps. And those might be things that you need to overcome. You should sit down and make a plan for that. How am I going to meet these people? What do I bring to the table that they're going to value in me? What can I bring to them, right? And what am I looking for them to bring to me? So that I have a good measure of whether or not I'm actually meeting the kinds of people that I need to meet to make my business, my investments, my personal development successful, right? Also, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to make goals. Obviously, you have people in your lives in project management. So if you would like to go to school, university, whatever, and learn project management, Six Sigma, that kind of thing, then what you would learn is that all projects, all business projects have stakeholders. And this is true of all projects. Your projects do as well. As an investor, you have stakeholders. To give you a list of some of my stakeholders, for example, obviously there's myself. I have a fiance, there's her. I have a property manager who is invested in the decisions I make for the properties that they manage, right? I have tenants, right? I have the government, right? All these people, or groups of people, or organizations of people, and there are others, but we'll stop there, have a vested interest in what I'm going to do next year, right? Obviously, my tenants need a place to live, right? And if I were to sell my house to a developer who's going to kick them all out and develop something, that would not work very well for them, right? The government is a stakeholder. They want to get paid their taxes, right? They're expecting me to pay their taxes, and they need me to successfully operate the property so I can collect rent and have the money to pay them their taxes, right? So there's all these different groups who are interested. My fiance, self-explanatory. She wants to see a profit turned, right? So everybody's got their different interests and stakes in you, right? And we should really be taking the time, right? Maybe at least on an annual basis, maybe more frequently, but we should be taking the time to sit down and really think about who are the stakeholders, who are the people who are invested in my success, and who I need to in turn be invested in their success in order to see my business, my investment, my portfolio, whatever you want to call it, succeed, right? A lot of the times, I think we kind of, it's easy to feel like you're doing something alone. It's very easy to feel that way, right? When you're investing in real estate, I think investing in real estate is a very lonely activity. For example, I find myself going to places and talking to people, and a lot of conversations go something along the lines of blah 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 blah. This is my life. I wish I was rich. Blah 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 blah. This is my life. I wish I had more time, more freedom. Blah 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 blah. This is my life. My landlord sucks. The government sucks. My boss sucks. My job sucks. It's a lot of conversations like that in life. And when you have the mindset and the mentality that I walk around with, anyways, those conversations can be frustrating. For me, they grate on me because people come and they want to complain to you about being poor and being and how life is hard and how this sucks and that sucks and whatever. And I understand that everybody needs some catharsis. We do, you need a release sometimes, and I understand that. But at the same time, as somebody who spends a lot of his time focused on what he can do, what he can control, how he can make things better, and who has successfully bought property and made it better and made money and improved the situation. It's just hard to even begin to relate to those people, right? Because they're approaching life from such a different perspective than I am, right? That's really hard to have that conversation without either feeling like you're checked out and you're not a part of it, or getting into like an argument or a debate with these people because they're not actually correct about how the world is, right? And I don't want to debate with people. If you want to complain about your job, complain about your job. I'm not going to argue with you, right? And so it becomes very it can be very challenging, right, to feel like you're not kind of alone when those are the types of people you're going to be encountering oftentimes, right? So it's a very good idea to sit down once in a while, periodically, go through your list of stakeholders. Who is it who's invested in your success? Who is it who wants to see you succeed? Who knows what you're doing and thinks that it's great, right? Write those people down and maybe spend a little bit of time thinking about, well, what would success look like, and what would success look like to those people and your relationship to those people. So your relationship to those people, right? Right, that's something you should be keeping track of, right? um, Again, to use myself as an example, right? Everybody who is listening to my voice right now is a stakeholder for me, right? You all are people who, in one way or another, have some, and it may be incredibly minor. It's true, and I recognize that, but nonetheless, you have some investment in me and the outcomes that I seek to achieve, right? Whether it's building up my real estate portfolio, whether it is slowly but surely making the transition towards wholesaling real estate, or perhaps a longer term goal of mine, which I'm not even really working on yet, which is to one day own an apartment or apartment buildings, right? And maybe some of you will be my syndicate partners in that. Whatever it is, you want to spend a little bit of time thinking about what you bring to the table for those stakeholders, right? And how you can improve not only your relationship with them, because these are people generally, not always, but generally who are bringing you some sort of value, but also how you can bring some value back to them, right? Life is about an exchange. I don't want to say that as if like crudely, but just in general, we're all exchanging things: attention, value, expertise, knowledge, goods, services, whatever it is, right? Uh, you know, um, it's kind of a crude comparison, but somebody said this to me this week, so I'll take it. I'll take it. I was speaking to a gentleman. He was talking to me about. Guess he was talking to me about like prostitution, hookers, whatever. And he was saying like, this is like a 50-something-year-old man. He was saying, what's wrong with hookers? You pay for it one way or the other. I thought that was a very interesting observation. Not because the hooker thing. I mean, do you, free country and all that, but because he said you pay for it one way or another, and I think there's a huge amount of truth there, right? We're all making an exchange. Women will make an exchange with you for love and affection and stability in the future or whatever, or other women will trade money, you know. Similar result, not the same, but similar result, different exchange though, right? So life is always about the exchange. It's just figuring out what that exchange is. Sometimes the exchange has nothing to do with money, right? Sometimes it's about attention. Sometimes it's about status. Sometimes it's about, weird stuff, childhood fantasies and other things that you can't even necessarily understand how the person's getting value out of something, but they are, right? Your goal is not to understand where the value comes from necessarily. That's a very tricky thing to do, but your goal is to capture that value, right? There's a term in entrepreneurial circles, it's a buzzword. You'll hear a lot, especially in like Silicon Valley, and that is you need to monetize. You need to monetize, right? You might hear YouTubers say it a lot too. Monetize, right? The idea being that if you have a certain relationship or a certain resource, right? Maybe you have a successful website with lots of visitors, or you have a YouTube channel with lots of followers, or things like that. You monetize, right? You try to build a business around it. You try to get the people who you already have a relationship with and who you obviously already are delivering value to. You now try to say, hey, let's put a dollar value on the amount of value that I'm providing to you, right? And that's a very successful business model, right? That's something that we should all do in our lives, because in our lives, whether we recognize it or not, we often deliver value to other people that we don't necessarily charge for, right? And not everything can be monetized, and not everything should be monetized. But a lot of the times, because we're not very mindful of what we're doing, we miss opportunities to monetize the things that are actually bringing value to people, right? And this is one of the great benefits of sitting down with a journal, notebook, pen and paper, your computer, doesn't matter, but sitting down at least once a year, maybe more often, being very mindful and spending some time thinking about, writing about, talking about, if you've got a partner that you want to do this with or partners you want to do this with, what it is that you bring to the table, how it provides value, and where you can take it from here, right? And real estate is just one of the many things you can do that with. This year, I'm going to spend some time reviewing where I invest, right? What has changed about this market since the last time I looked at it? Now, because I do this seminar, I tend to look at the market a little bit more than I probably would in my own life by myself. And so I've reevaluated this market several times this year, which maybe if I didn't do the seminar, I would only have done once, maybe at like the 6-month mark. So it would be more valuable for me to evaluate the market if I didn't do this with you and therefore was a little less aware. But still, at the end of the year, I'm going to sit down and think about the market, right? Where did the prices start at, right? Where did the prices start at? Where are the prices at now? How much growth has that been? How long are properties sitting there for if I know or have that information, right? What things have we seen happening in this marketplace? So are interest rates having an effect? Does it seem like supply is going up or down? Demand is going up or down? Is the community growing or shrinking or staying the same, right? What about jobs and job opportunities and job prospects? What type of jobs? Has the mix or balance of jobs changed, right? Depending on where you invest, those might be questions you don't need to answer. Certainly, right? For example, if your investments are in the GTA, do you really need to look at the job mix? You probably don't. There's enough jobs and employers and everything here that, you know, unless we're going through some real fundamental changes in the Toronto economy, the job mix is going to provide jobs for everybody here who wants them, more or less, right? Certainly for your tenants, right? But these are all things that you want to take into consideration. Obviously, we've seen huge price jump in Sudbury this last year, 20 to 30%. Is that abnormal, right? If I compare that to other markets, how did I do? Should I be investing somewhere else? Was there somewhere where I could have gotten 60%? And what was different about that market, right? Was there somewhere where I would have only gotten 15%? And what was different about that market? Does 30% mean that this market is now tapped out? Have we, what point in the business, or not the business cycle, but the real estate investing cycle, it's kind of the same thing, but what point in that cycle are we at, right? These are all important things that I should know. Now, they're not important things that I need to know on a day-to-day basis, right? When I'm sitting down investing in property, should I be thinking about these things? No, probably none of these things should be considerations for me, right? But at some point, I should have considered them before I started doing the analyses, right? And this end of the year is a really fantastic time to sit down and double check your math and double check your reasoning and make sure that you've really spent the time to think about it. Because that's the requirement. Napoleon Hill, famous motivational speaker, personal development writer, blah, 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 all around awesome guy. He talks in several of his books about the benefits of accurate thinking. And he explains what he means by accurate thinking. Right? He explains that what he means is that you must not only consider the logic, the reason of what you're saying, or what you're thinking, or what you're planning, but that you also must examine the evidence that that feeds into that logic, right? You know, if you, for example, were to say hot air rises, and the hotter the air, the faster it rises. Therefore, if I fill a balloon with fire, I can go to the moon, right? My logic is pretty sound, right? Hot air rises, the hotter it is, the faster it rises. Good. Fill my balloon, it's going to take me to the moon. The moon is up. So far, we're all good. Of course, my plan falls apart because hot air only rises when it is in a body of cooler air. It doesn't rise in a vacuum. And unfortunately, between the Earth and the Moon, there's a giant vacuum. And so my hot air balloon full of fire will take me up to wherever, I don't know, the upper atmosphere, wherever it is that that effect stops happening. And that won't take me any further because I haven't thought things through in a clearer manner. My thinking was sloppy. And because my thinking was sloppy, it encouraged me to apply a strategy that does not work in this situation. Right? Now, the danger of applying a strategy that does not work in this situation, well, it costs me, in the case of my hot air balloon trip to the moon, it's going to cost me the money of whoever I sold tickets to get to the moon because we're not going there, right? And obviously, I'm going to waste the balloon and blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, it could get me killed. I mean, really. It's very important to think accurately. You know, it's funny. We go to schools, and the schools teach you not to get things wrong. They teach you to be very, very correct answer oriented, which is pretty useless. Getting the correct answer is very rarely useful. In fact, getting the correct answer is only useful when someone else already knows what the correct answer is. And in those situations, the correct answer is very rarely all that valuable because someone already knows what it is, right? The real skill in life is finding the correct or the most correct or the closest to correct answer when nobody knows what the correct answer is, because that's when there's an opportunity to create value, right? If I come to you with an empty lot in Toronto and I say, how much should we spend on building a property here? The question has not been answered, or there would be a property there. You have to be the person who answers that question. And if you can answer it correctly, you can make a whole lot of money, right? Obviously, if someone does answer that question, they build something there. And now the question is answered for you, and now you have a property that you can value, right? And you can use all the different methods, market valuation, looking for comps, the income approach. Well, I won't. The replacement approach is really weird. Nobody really uses it, so we'll ignore that one. But you have all these different methods for evaluating the thing now that somebody's giving you an answer, right? And even if their answer was wrong, like let's say on this lot, the highest and best use for this lot was let's say it's a 10-plex apartment building, but instead you put in like a small commercial plaza, 3 commercial units with 3 residential above, right? And let's say that's just not the best use. You do that. Now, when you go to sell it, right, that not best use building is going to obviously underperform the buildings around it that are at their best use. And so the marketplace will be able to compute and calculate, hey, this is not the best use for this building. But that's after you've already given your answer. You see, in life, you're going to put forward your hypothesis, and then life tells you whether it's right or wrong. This is exactly the case with investing, right? You do your analysis. You say, I think this property makes money. And then you have to have the faith, the mindset, the motivation to say, I'm going to take action on my analysis because I believe in myself and my ability to do math and reason. And perhaps I have a team or I have other people who I trust or I consult with and I trust their input as well. And finally, I'm going to take action. You go, you buy the thing, and then are you right? And there's a lot of things to be right about or wrong about, things, some of which you considered, right? Like the proper, maybe you considered the purchase price of the house and the interest rate of the house and the rental rates in the area and all those things. But there are also the things you didn't consider, not because you're dumb or you're lazy or you're sloppy. No, maybe you were thorough and you were perfect, but then there was coronavirus. Maybe you were thorough and you were perfect, and then 9/11 happened. Maybe you were thorough and you were perfect, and then we have the dot-com crash. Maybe you were thorough and you were perfect, but then Bitcoin comes out of nowhere and starts eating, some old market that you were doing well in and is now being crushed by things like Bitcoin, right? The world is in constant flux. It's always shifting. We can't keep track of everything. But Napoleon Hill tells us it's very important to spend a little bit of time trying our best to think accurately about things, so that we can make accurate judgments about situations, and then we can use those accurate judgments to take action. One of the number one things I hear from people when I talk to them, and I remember I was just saying that a lot of people, they have these very kind of surface level, complain about my job, complain about my boss, complain about my life, wish for more money kind of interactions, but there's no action being taken. It's just mostly complaining. But a lot of that is down to very inaccurate thinking, right? If you sit there and you say to me, oh, Aaron, I want to be retired. I can tell you how to retire in 5 years. Right? Retiring is easy. It's not that hard. Uh, some things have to go your way. That's true. And you're gonna have to work really hard in this next 5 years if you want to really do it. And depending on who you are and where you're starting from, it could be longer than 5 years, right? I am starting as a person who owns multiple properties and has some savings and blah blah blah. If you're a person who's $50,000 in debt, you're not gonna be able to do it as quickly as I can unless you either work a lot harder than I do or you get a lot luckier than I do, right? But ultimately, everybody has got a certain time horizon between here and retirement. It's a pretty simple mathematical equation. Yet your average person is not aware of the mathematical equation, right? Your average person will complain to me that they don't like their job, they don't want to work, they'd like to be retired, but they've never sat down and figured out what the 4% rule is. They've never sat down and figured out what a drawdown period is for a retirement, right? Because your average retirement has a drawdown period, usually 20 to 30 years, depending on when you're planning to retire and when you're planning to die, or when your actuary or financial planner, advisor is thinking you will die, right? And that's the period over which your retirement savings have to last. And once you know that, it's very easy to go do the math backwards and figure out how much money you need to have saved, and what rate of return you need that money to be saved at to figure out your retirement. It's just that people don't take the step of doing the accurate thinking. Not only do they not take the step, but that we get so caught up in the whirlwind of BS. And life is full. The whirlwind of BS is strong. It's around all of us, right? Everybody's got the whirlwind around them. First of all, we lie to ourselves. Right? First of all, we lie to ourselves. It's the rare person who is not dishonest with themselves. So, hang on a second. This dog wants to go. Hey, dog, go. Sorry. First of all, we lie to ourselves, right? We have goals that we want to accomplish. We put them off, right? We have concerns. We wave them away. We have things that we think are important, but we don't know how to address them, so we tell ourselves they're not important. Whatever it is, people deceive themselves in a lot of ways, right? Obviously, we should all endeavor to do our best not to deceive ourselves. We should all endeavor to do our best to be not only honest with ourselves, but honest with the people around us. But all the same, we are human, and we all fall short of that sometimes. And so right away, your reality is a little bit distorted because you are not perfect. But then you've got all the people around you who are as equally not perfect as you are, and they're all struggling with the exact same crap as you are. And unfortunately, most people are not even very committed to trying to be careful with what they say and what they think and what they do. Right? So most people are pretty careless with their words and their thoughts and their opinions. And so a lot of the information that comes into you is really quite unconsidered, right? And so now if you take that information in without considering it, which we all do to some extent, because who's got time to think about every single thing that you hear, right? Well, now you're getting in all this information, which is a lot of noise without very valuable signal in it, right? A lot of what gets said to you is noise. Well, I'm gonna give you one here that I think of, and all my life, growing up, kind of a nerdy person when I was younger. Love science, technology, that kind of thing. Love it. Like, I could tell you about the next 5-year roadmap of companies like LG and Samsung and Intel, what they're doing with technology. Because I'm that nerdy. It's just something I enjoy. Whatever. So I've always liked nerdy stuff. I like to go on the internet, listen to like scientific debates and stuff. You can ask my fiance. I'm a very kind of nerdy person in that regard. And all my life, I've had this very strong fascination with science, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. And my favorite science is probably physics, but biology and chemistry, they're all right too. And certainly biology is interesting. I remember reading about CRISPR. You're probably all familiar with CRISPR. I remember when it was invented about 12 years ago. And I remember watching some talks and reading some of the abstracts from the original researchers who were working on it at places like MIT and stuff like that, and thinking, wow, this is a cool technology. Who knows where this will go? This has such a bright future. Anyways, I have this love of all this nerdy stuff. And I'm saying all this because I grew up with a great fascination in science and technology, and words have meanings. right? Words have meanings, they have definitions, and certainly they change sometimes. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but they have meanings, right? And in order for you to use them effectively, you've got to kind of abide by their meanings, right? Certainly, you could say words and ignore their meanings and give them new meanings, and we could play lots of word games. But to have a meaningful conversation, debate, discussion, we got to kind of stick to what the words mean, right? My understanding of the word vaccine is a medical product that once taken, possibly multiple times, but once taken, whatever the schedule for this product is, once taken, it grants you a degree of protection against infection from an infectious disease. That's my understanding. I have the mumps, measles, rubella vaccine, for example. I've got all of them, whatever the schedule is. You know, um, what's the big one you get when you're in school there with hepatitis, right? All those different things. Anyway, that's the purpose of a vaccine. So now we enter the COVID times, and obviously bad things are happening. We got this COVID pandemic, and you know what? Whatever you think about the COVID pandemic, it's a thing for sure. There is a disease at the very least. So these really slick, super evil big pharma companies who are the most fined in world history and easily some of the most awful businesses in our society. That would not be a controversial statement at any other time, but during the Rona, it is. They come forward and they say, hey, we're working on a vaccine, which good. That's what they're supposed to do, right? And they come forward and say, okay, we've got a vaccine, which again, good. That's what they're supposed to do. And then they come forward and they say, okay, take our vaccine. And again, this is good. This is what should happen. And in a free market, you do the evaluation for yourself of whether or not, I mean, in consultation with healthcare professionals, your doctors, et cetera, et cetera. You would sit down and you would talk about, you know, the pros and cons, and then you might try the vaccine, you might not, depending on your risk profile, what the doctor thinks of you, et cetera, et cetera. And then over time, that would result in data points for us to then evaluate how effective the vaccine is, right? Perfect. Very simple process. Okay. The term vaccine is supposed to provide me with protection. Now, we have changed the definition of vaccine to be, I guess, something that mitigates the harm, theoretically, something like that, because it doesn't confer protection, right? We currently have people who are getting sick with COVID, fully vaccinated. Now we're changing the definition of fully vaccinated. Watch out for this next week. It's probably going to jump from 2 doses to 2 doses and a booster is fully vaccinated. And if you only have 2 doses, then you're going to be considered the unvaxxed or the partially vaccinated, whatever it is, right? And so now we're going to move to 3. But now the 3 doses is still not going to protect you, because we've already seen in Israel, where they already have the entire population dosed with the 3 doses, that they're still getting sick. So that doesn't work, which then raises the question, well, then what am I taking? Is it actually a vaccine, right? And to my mind, yes, it may be a vaccine, but it is either a vaccine that does not work or is not very effective, or it is not a vaccine. It's one of those two things in my mind, because the word vaccine is something that confers this immunization property to you, right? And so we're doing this thing where we're thinking about the situation inaccurately. People are panicked. We're afraid. We're worried about what's going on in the world, what's going to happen. Is grandma going to survive? Am I going to get COVID and die? Blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of fear being pumped into things because, well, let's be honest, people usually do their best thinking when they're about to shit themselves scared, right? That's how good thinking works, right? Is when you're terrified, that's when your brain really kicks into gear and you start solving problems. No, of course not. But for some reason, we're pumping the fear anyways as a society. I don't get it. But people are not practicing accurate thinking. And so now they've engaged in, think about this, right? We've now engaged as a society in a program to vaccinate everybody. I believe the last time I heard the numbers, Justin Trudeau had bought over 400 million dosages of the COVID-19 vaccine. This was back in the summer/springtime. 400 million dosages of a vaccine for a country that has not even 40 million people in it. Okay, so obviously, yes, Justin Trudeau was not a math teacher. That, I hope it was clear. But regardless, that's what the Canadian government did. Explain to me how that reaction makes sense in the face of the evidence that I just talked about to you. I mean, again, there's not even 40 million people here. You've got 10 dosages per person, right? Like, let's just say that the vaccine is completely effective, right? Obviously, that's not my opinion, but let's just say that it is. don't we only need 80 million dosages to dose every person in Canada? Assuming that there are 40 million of us, which there are not even, which means that with 80 million dosages, you'd have a bunch of redundant dosages for when nurses drop needles and stuff like that, right? So what is the thinking there? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. I'm not here to speculate, but I'm just trying to point out that people are not thinking about things accurately, right? And this is a thing. I'm saying this. This isn't a real estate investing thing. This isn't an investing thing in general. This is a life thing. People are not very accurate in their lives, and there's a lot of reasons for it. But one of the reasons, and what I'm trying to say today is, one of the reasons is because a lot of people, they never sit down and consider and reevaluate. They never sit down and check to see if their guesses were correct. They just keep moving. And there's nothing wrong with keeping moving in life. Sitting down and staring at your navel or whatever is not productive or valuable, right? But it's a big but. You've got to measure yourself, right? You've got to measure your growth. You've got to measure your potential. When you were a kid in school, your teacher took the time to evaluate you on a weekly, on a monthly, on a quarterly, and eventually on a semesterly basis, right? Why? They were trying to encourage growth. Simple, right? When you go to the gym, if you get a personal trainer, they're going to measure where you're at, and then they're going to monitor you. Again, why? Simple. They're trying to get you to grow, right? So real estate is absolutely no different. Money is no different. Nothing in life is different, really, right? Whatever goal you want, this advice is really quite universal. It's not limited to real estate. Sit down and measure where you're at. Get a solid snapshot of who you are and what you're doing. Now we can take this snapshot, we can transform it from where we are today to where we want to be. If I sit down, to use the gym analogy again for a second, if I sit down and I don't know, we do like a fitness test and I can curl, say 30 pounds, which, yeah, that's probably 30 pounds, right, per arm or whatever, right? It's not that much weight. It's not a little bit of weight, but it's not that much weight. And let's say my goal is to be able to curl 75 pounds. I'm jacked, right? Okay, well, if I'm currently at 30 and I want to get to 75, I need to add 45 pounds, right? That's kind of my goal, or that's my dream, right? To add that 45 pounds. Now, my goal should be to add maybe 10 pounds every 2 months or so, right? And in that way, at the end of the year, I can make it to my 75-pound goal, right? If I just sit here and I don't know how much I can lift, I know I want to get to 75, but I don't know how much I can lift. There's a chance, right? I mean, all I got to do is start lifting and working towards 75, and I may get there. I may get there. Now, what happens to the majority of people, right? So here's the thing about setting goals or dreams or whatever. If you just have the dream, which is, hey, I want to be able to lift 75 pounds. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be this. I want to be that. There is a small subset of people who, with nothing but that dream in mind, will set out and they will accomplish the dream. They will do it. They don't need to write down the steps. They don't need to make a goal, nothing like that. The dream is enough drive for them. That's a very rare person, but it does happen sometimes. For most people, they need to figure out the steps a little bit. And so to go back to my fitness analogy where I'm able to curl 30 pounds and I want to get to 75. Well, if I don't do a self-evaluation to begin with, and I don't know that I can curl 30 pounds, right? Then I may start out with too low of a weight to improve to a point where I can get to my 75 pounds in a year, right? Like if I start out with 5 pounds because I didn't know I could do 30, and I'm doing 10 pounds every 2 months, well, it's going to take me more than a year to get to 75 because I got to go from 5 pounds up to 70. That's 14 months, right? That's 7 doublings or 7 10-pound increases. I'm doing it every 2 months. So it's over a year to do it. And therefore, I missed my goal because I didn't measure where I was starting from, right? Similarly, I might overestimate. I might think I can curl 50 pounds. And so I might start my fitness plan at 50 pounds. 1 rep. Maybe I get to 2 reps. I just shred, just tear the crap out of my muscles. And now I can't lift for 2 weeks. I just lose 2-3 weeks of progress, right? Because I again, was not aware of where I was actually coming from, what I was actually capable of, right? To make the analogy much more about real estate, right? There's a lot of different ways to invest in real estate. And real estate investing is has the distinction of most people think they know what it is because they buy a house, which is funny because most people don't think that they're stock market investors, even though most people do own stocks. So I don't know why they get this impression with real estate, but a lot of people think they understand real estate investing because they own a house, right? And a lot of people will tell you, you've heard this, people will tell you, you don't want no debt when you buy a house, right? Because your house, you try to avoid the debt. Pay off your mortgage as fast as you can. Don't carry any debt. Don't use credit cards, right? You'll hear people say things like this. Those people know nothing about real estate investing. They're like the guy who's at the gym and he doesn't know how much weight he can lift, right? They're completely confused, but they think that they understand the thing. And not only do they think that they understand the thing, but because they're confused and they think they understand the thing, their understanding is actually crippling them, right? To use the simple one, the avoiding debt, obviously, should go without saying, debt is a dangerous thing. Kind of like a hammer is a dangerous thing. Hammers are great if you're building a house, but you don't want to hit your thumb with it or smash your neighbor in the skull with one, right? Similarly, debt is fantastic. It's the only way I've ever been able to buy a house. I've never saved up for one. People had to lend you money, right? Debt is great. Debt is how most businesses are built. Debt is how much cash flow is managed. Debt is a phenomenally useful thing, but not credit card debt, not consumer debt, not car debt, right? There are debts that are good and there are debts that are bad, right? And sitting down and understanding that and leveraging that is important. And the person who comes to you and says all debts are bad is as long as the person who comes to you and says all debt is good. They're both wrong. There's a lot of nuance there. Good debts are fantastic and bad debts are really, really horrible, right? And you must be able to draw the distinction, right? And this is just one of the many ways in which accurate thinking is very important. So I really, really encourage, I implore you even, take the next 2 weeks. You won't have to hear me going on about real estate or analysis or mindset or any of these things. Take some time, sit down, and get a snapshot of who you are, where you are, what you're trying to accomplish as a real estate investor for the year 2022. Are you going to buy one house? Are you going to buy 5 houses? Or maybe you want to measure it in units. Are you going to buy 1 unit, 3 units, 8 units, 12 units? What's your goal, right? Understand the goal in the sense of the dream is one thing, which is what would you like to see happen? We then have to work on the goal, which is how are we going to make it happen? And then, of course, the hardest part is we got to do the follow through, which is to actually do the steps of the goal, right? Which sometimes is it's when you're hungover and Saturday morning you have to go out to go sign a deal on a property or something, but you were out partying the previous night. That's not always the easiest to follow through, but you got to do that too. We got to try to do all those things. So that's something that I will be doing. I did not grab my notebook for this talk. To be honest with you, I'm not as well prepared for today as I was hoping to be. Like I said, I was out late last night drinking and celebrating the holidays, and the time got away from me. So I do have a notebook, just not because I prepared something to show you, but just because it's something that I do every year. From last year that shows you all the planning and thinking about this year. And you know what? One of the great things about writing down goals as well is they keep you honest and accountable, right? I mentioned before we lie to ourselves, and that's true. I had goals this year that I did not accomplish, right? Not everything that gets written down gets done, right? Unfortunately, I mean, I'm not the who was he? He was the Pharaoh. I'm not the Pharaoh from the Ten Commandments. Bonus points if any of you get that reference. So sometimes things get written down, but they don't get done. And this year, I wanted to buy more real estate than I ended up buying. I had wanted to. We have a property that needs to be refinanced, but turning it over has been a little slower than my partners and I had hoped it was going to be, and so we still have not begun the process of refinancing it. And of course, that's going to unlock a bunch of money, which was supposed to help me reach the goal of buying all those properties, which I didn't accomplish this year. That's how it goes sometimes, right? You don't always accomplish your goals, and that's fine. But at least you had them. At least you know what they were. At least you knew what you needed to do to accomplish them, and you know why you didn't accomplish them if you didn't accomplish them, right? Like I know in large part why I didn't accomplish my goal this year, right? And a lot of it is my own fault, not pushing hard enough for certain things that could have maybe sped up the timeline for getting these properties turned over, right? Not, I mean, just things that were going on in my own life, not being in a position to really focus on or think about that refinance for the first half of the year or so, right? And so things come together that cause you to alter your course or whatever. Obviously, you all know life is life. It surprises you and etc. But by having that plan, you get to look back and say, hey, you know what? Okay, I didn't accomplish the goal, but at least here are the reasons why, and these are the changes or the adjustments I can make, right? So now looking in forward to this coming year, I now have a bunch of pitfalls that I've now learned from this year, things that are either mistakes I made or things I need to watch out for or things other people did, whatever it is, that I'm now armed to deal with better next year, right? And I think that's the ultimate thing, and that's where I'm going to leave it for today, and I guess for this year. Real estate investing in general, and really building the life of your dreams. Every time I get to meet a successful person who's built like a life, and mind you, nobody is ever like truly successful in the sense that like whatever your goal was, you may accomplish it, but then there's a bunch of things in life that you weren't very focused on, and then those things maybe aren't always the way that you want them to be, right? So even I've met a bunch of people who've had great lives and lots of success in their goals, their aims, and yet maybe in other aspects of their lives, those weren't their goals or aims, so those things aren't as squared away, so to speak, right? But whenever I meet and deal with these successful people, and just something that I try to keep myself mindful of in general is like, life is not static. It's in flux. It's changing. It's dynamic. There's a book. If you're interested, there's a book. It's a fantastic book. Not because the book is super good or anything, but because the woman who wrote the book did a great job of explaining what she was investigating. And she really does a good job of making sense of the world through her hypothesis. The book is called Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. I have definitely recommended it before on the seminar. But the book is called Mindset, and she talks about the difference between a fixed mindset, and I believe she calls the other one an abundance mindset. And a fixed mindset essentially sees the world as being fixed in place. That is, if you have a job and your job pays you $17.25 per hour, then the way the person with the fixed mindset looks at the world is that they have a job that pays $17.25 per hour, and they will have that job until the day that they die. And even if on some level they know that that's not true, that's how they operate within the world. I think the number one thing that you need to understand as an investor, really as a human being who's trying to be the best person that you can be, the world is not fixed, it's dynamic. We all have the opportunity every day to be better than we were yesterday. And the only question is, are we actually going to take the time, the consideration, and the mental energy to actually be so? Because it requires effort to be better today than I was yesterday. It requires me to have paid attention yesterday to what I was doing. And a lot of the times, we want to go about the tasks in our lives in a very mindless way that stops us from having to think about them because they're boring or they're stressful or they're painful or they're this or they're that. We all have our reasons, right? But we need to, at least with tasks that we're hoping to improve at, we need to fight that urge, right? And be very mindful of what we're doing and try to focus on how we can improve and how we can grow as individuals so that we can be better, so that we can take on a greater challenge tomorrow. And as long as you keep doing that, you know what? Whatever your path is, whatever your journey is in life, I guarantee you, you will find, I mean, I shouldn't guarantee you because you could get hit by a bus or something, but like assuming that you live and you don't face catastrophe, you will end up with material success if you just keep that in mind, because that is the journey in life, right? And one thing that we have right now, we have a group of people, I'm going to call them the socialists, but I don't know, you call them whatever you want. There's a lot of words for them. The critical theorists, the gender studies people, the whatever, you know, there's a whole bunch of people. But you have these people right now, and they're really agitating. They don't seem to like the society that we have. And I get it, our society has lots of flaws. Nobody would deny that. But one of the things I'm struck by when I hear these people complain is how much all of their complaints are based in this very fixed mentality that the world is one way. You know, there are people with power here and there are victims down here. And, you know, that's not how the world is. You know, the victim today is the bully tomorrow. The bully today is the victim tomorrow. You know, the king today is the pauper tomorrow. And the peasant today is the new king, you know. Elon Musk is one of the richest, most powerful. In fact, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are two of the richest, most powerful men in the world who run two of the largest and most successful and important companies in world history. Neither of them is from a wealthy family. Neither of them is old money. They're both new money. They're two of the richest, most powerful. Now, okay, fine. Some people will be like, well, Larry, you don't even know there's like hidden wealth and all this stuff. And I'm not going to deny that that's true, because that is true. There is hidden wealth, and you're right. Elon Musk is probably not as rich as the Queen of England when you actually do the full accounting. But the Queen of England is also kind of special because she doesn't do anything. She can't do that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she does do things, but at least on the surface, it seems like she doesn't have very much power. Certainly, Elon Musk has a lot more control over his life than she does, even if she's substantially richer than he is, right? So when you look at that, you recognize that, like, oh, actually, 20 years ago, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos were both nobodies. They were both nobodies. I mean, yeah, no, that's maybe not fair. 30 years ago, they were both nobodies. 20 years ago, they both started their first companies by then. So, but they were nobodies, right? And so it's very easy to look at the world today and say, oh, they're on top. Therefore, they've always been on top. But they actually haven't been. The next people behind them, like the Bill Gates and who's the one who died there? He was a bit of a jerk. Steve Jobs, right? Again, both nobodies. They came from nowhere. These were not Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, he was at Harvard, so his family maybe had a bit of money, but he wasn't like, you know, aristocracy or anything. So what is at the bottom often makes its way to the top. What is at the top often makes its way to the bottom. Things are in flux, right? The cycle is changing. I have a credit score in like the top 10% of all Canadians. I used to have a credit score in the bottom 10% of all Canadians. Things change, right? These are the things that we need to understand, is that you're not fixed in place. And as long as you keep that mentality in mind and you plan and you're intentional about moving from one place to the next, you will be able to make that move, right? It may happen more slowly than you'd like. Sometimes it surprises you and happens much more quickly than you thought it could. But it can happen, right? And we all just have to keep that in mind. We have to do the things that allow us to take advantage of that. And I think, just to, you know, circle back and wrap it up, that what Carol S. Dweck talks about in her book Mindset, and what I see with these people who have this fixed mindset, and I especially see this with these, again, I'm going to call them the socialists, but whatever you want to call them, those types of people. I see them looking at the world and thinking, oh, I'm here today and you're there today, and I want to be there. So therefore, I need to tear you down. And I think that that is such a naive way to look at the world. If you see someone who is up, ahead, above you, understand that this is life. This is not a race at the Olympics, right? I think that's the analogy that gets used by these kind of fixed mindset people, right? Is that we're running a race and you got a head start. And so I need to hold you back so I can catch up to you. But we're not running a race, because a race has a defined start, right? I'm going to pick on Armando. Armando here, just because I think everybody knows who Armando is. Armando is my brother-in-law. Armando is a year younger than me. Now, he's not actually a year younger than me. He's a school year younger than me. He's about 2 months younger than me in reality, right? But he's a full year behind me in school and all of that stuff, right? Not that any of us are at school anymore, but you understand. I don't have a head start on Armando. Armando does not have a head start on me. We're not running a race. He's 2 months younger than I am. I have a 2-month head start. There are people who are 10 years older than me. They have a 10-year head start, right? There is no reason why I should look at a person who's been investing in real estate for 10 years longer than I have and think that I should have the same accomplishments as them. And there are people who've been investing in real estate for 10 years and they only own one house, and I am more accomplished than them, right? But there's no reason why I should look at those people and assume that we're running the same race. We're not. Right? And that's this very fixed mentality, is that, again, the world is like even playing field. It's not an even playing field. How on earth is the world even between, let's say, Warren Buffett, who's had 80 years to accumulate his wealth, and Aaron Thomas, who's had friggin' 10, right? Like it's not. It's silly, right? It's silly, and it's not, and it's silly. And so we all need to spend time thinking accurately and making our plans, because shoot, man, if you read, Warren Buffett publishes all of his investor letters every single year. He has published his letters for like 40 years. Him and Charlie Munger, they're the people who run Berkshire Hathaway, one of the most successful and valuable investing firms in the world, right? And he publishes all of his thinking every single year. And if you go read his thinking, man, it's so boring. He's like, yeah, I want to buy this thing. I'm hoping we're going to get 8% on it every single year. And we're just going to buy a little more. And I see an opportunity to buy it at a 2% discount, so we're going to pick up more shares. I'm like, that's what his letters read like. There's nothing exciting. He's not a genius. I mean, he's a smart guy with a great plan, and he's been able to stick to it. But there's nothing like intensely intelligent about him. You know, he's not Bradley, what is this guy's name? Bradley Cooper in Limitless or anything. He's pretty average kind of a guy, not in terms of his wealth, but the other stuff. And yet look at where he's at. Right? Like, if you did what he did, you'd be good. There's a lot of advice like that. Save 10% of your income per year. Save more than that. That's a very small amount of your income. Save at least 10% of your income per year, right? Put money aside. Take it and invest it. If you do these few things, you'll avoid being poor, right? That's all that's required. And yet so many people end up poor. Why? Because they don't do these few things, because they don't understand. Maybe they were never interested. Maybe they were never taught. Maybe they were confused by people who didn't understand. Right? There's a lot of reasons why we miss our marks. And that's something we have to keep in mind and remember, especially if you do accomplish the things that you're aiming for in your life and you do have that success. Turn around and look back, and don't forget that some people didn't succeed, not because they didn't want to work hard or they didn't want to do the right thing, but because nobody ever came and showed them the way. And so they spent their lives working hard, but not at things that would produce the productivity and the success that they were looking for. Right? And it's very important to remember that. It's one of the reasons why I try to do the seminars, because I get into these conversations with people where they're complaining and they want to make changes and and it's not fair and whatever. And you know, I can only roll my eyes so much, right? But I can say, hey, look, this is how I do it. You're welcome to try too. It's gonna work for you if you do it right. And to try to offer that guidance. And you know what? Sometimes you'll meet somebody and they take me up on my offer and they come join the seminar or whatever, and other people, you know, they don't. And that's life. There's nothing you can do about that. But you know, you keep working towards your own improvement, and as you improve, other people will take notice, at least the people who are interested in improving themselves, right? Some people, they don't want to improve, and there's nothing you can do about that. But you know, for your person who wants to be better, who wants to do more, who wants to invest, who wants to be successful, materially independent, whatever it is, those people, they do slowly but surely take notice. You know, as you improve. And you know, just the final thought, just to stick with the subject of like improvement and how things are not fixed, they're dynamic. I have a buddy, he recently started a new job, and you know, it's he got a nice promotion. In the last, I don't know, year and a half, he's probably been promoted 3 times. So he's really moved up quite quickly. And before this, he was unemployed for a period, and before that, he was trying to run his own business, and so he's done a lot of things, right? And of course, you know, all of these promotions have come very quickly, very recently. And the reason why is because, well, he tried to run his own business. And I mean, I say try, he succeeded. Unfortunately, things didn't work out with his partners. So, I mean, they were being successful until things fell apart in that regard, right? He grew himself, his skills, his abilities, to manage a company, to grow a business, to market it, to manage the cash flow, to do all the things that the person has to do to run a business successfully, right? He learned all of those things. And so even though materially it did not get him ahead, obviously, like I said, this venture didn't work out. It got him ahead because it improved what we call his human capital. That is, he was a better manager, a better employee, a better person. If you have a business, right, and you have, I don't know, 5 locations, and you need somebody to manage those 5 locations, you gonna give it to the kid who went to university and read some books about managing things, or you're gonna give it to the guy who had a business for 3 years, 5 years, whatever, who can tell you exactly the ins and outs of managing cash flow and your accounts payable versus your accounts receivable and all the different things that you have to do to keep a business running. He knows and understands those things intimately, and therefore he knows and understands those things for your business. Who are you going to hire? You're obviously going to hire him, not the kid. That much is super duper clear, right? And so he made himself more valuable by trying to make himself more valuable, and you'll do the exact same thing, right? Not only are the skills and the knowledge that you use as a real estate investor valuable to you, but funny enough, sitting down here, what I'm saying today, writing out your plans and your goals for this year, and really making sure you try to think about them accurately, you try to take action on those things. Believe it or not, that's a skill that is incredibly valuable. Companies will pay you upwards of 6 figures for that skill alone. There's a reason why the highest paid people in a lot of organizations is the CEO. The CEO is the chief executive officer. An executive officer is one who executes on the plan or design, right? There's a reason, because most people never do that, right? And you're going to be the CEO of your own life if you sit down at the end of this year or the start of next year and you plan out what your plan is for your company, Aaron Inc. or whatever it is, right, for next year. And then the most important part is you have to be the CEO. You have to actually execute on your plan. You have to make it happen. But if you manage to do that, you will not only have gained, the skills and ability to grow your own real estate investing business, which you will have, but you will have gained the soft skills that are necessary to run a company as well. And believe it or not, you can take that information to an interview and you can say to somebody, hey, you know what, I believe I have the confidence to help manage this division of your company or whatever, because my experience investing in real estate and trying to manage my real estate business and working on cash flow and this and that. And you'd be surprised at how many business owners will look at you and go, oh, wait, you have those skills? Those are very valuable skills to me. Yes, I would like you to be a part of my team, right? So growing yourself pays dividends in so many directions if you just make the effort to do it. I hope you all will. I hope that the end of 2021 is fantastic for each and every one of you, that you have a lot of great time with your friends, your family, your loved ones, whomever it is. I hope that you will really take what I've said today into consideration, and hopefully you will sit down and think about the year that's ahead of you and what you hope to do. And of course, I'm here to do my best to support you in those goals as much as I can with the knowledge and information that I have and that's available to me, and the obviously connections and what have you. So let me know how, once you have your plan, how I can assist you in implementing your plan and taking action on it. And hopefully we will all see each other again in 2022. Excited for the new year and with a plan to make it another one for the record books, because I really do believe as long as you have a plan and you have intention, sooner or later you will get to where you're going. At least that is the abundance mindset that I choose to live in every day, or as much as I can. And I think you should too. So anyways, Feliz Navidad and Happy New Year's, and I will see you not January. I think it's January the 2nd is the first Sunday of the year. I will probably not do a seminar that weekend, but that maybe it's the 9th, I think. Hopefully we'll return for our first seminar in 2021. So again, thank you for your time and your attention, and I hope you all have a very, very happy holidays, okay? Oh, and yeah, I won't be doing the seminar, but if you have questions or anything, feel free, shoot me an email or text or whatever, and I'll do my best to get you an answer if you need help with something. All right. Happy holidays, everybody.